You are listening to the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo, episode number 101.
Welcome to the Life Coach School podcast, where it's all about real clients, real problems, and real coaching. And now, your host, Master Coach Instructor, Brooke Castillo.
Well, hello, my friends. Thank you so much for all of the gifts and all of the love for the 100th episode. You guys are amazing. So some of you sent me emails saying that you finally did a review because I got to 100 episodes. That is a long time that it took y'all. But I appreciate it. Some of you sent me a review, which I appreciate it. And one of you, Denise, even told me that the reason you hadn't done a review is because it's kind of challenging. But then when you did it on your phone, it was very easy and that you could do it very easily. So Denise offered to help anyone that's having trouble. She's one of my certified coaches, and she offered to help anyone that's having trouble writing a review to help you write a review. So I'm going to put her email in the show notes. So thank you, Denise, for offering to do that. And for any of you who want to thank me for 100 episodes, I would really, really appreciate it. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Diane, who sent me the most beautiful bouquet of roses, totally unexpected. I'm sorry, it wasn't roses. It was all sorts of different flowers. It was just a beautiful bouquet. And they are seriously, gloriously all over. They're like splayed, I should say, all over the kitchen counter. And I also want to thank everyone else that sent me beautiful gifts. I can't go through them all, but I really, really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all the notes and posts that you guys did. So thank you for thanking me. I really appreciate it. This is one of those things I do because it's something that I love and I know is appreciated. Every time I have students that I meet live and in person, they tell me how much they love the podcast. We just did an in-person event, How to Feel Better in-person event. God, it was so awesome. It was such an amazing group of people. I feel like sometimes like things just align, and it was such a great group of people. Such an amazing experience to work with them all for the whole day. And it just seemed like the amount of work that you're able to do on someone's psyche in one day in person is really powerful. Unfortunately, we're not doing anything else like that for the rest of the year. So I don't mean to sell it. We do the in-person training, which of course is that times steroids. And we had a couple people that did that How to Feel Better event that signed up to come to our in-person training. So we're stoked. We love them. We're totally stoked to have you guys coming. Can't wait. Okay, so let's talk about the next few episodes and what I have planned. So I know that you guys, I've talked about this before, but I usually go through about 10 episodes and I send them over to Kirsten, who does all my design for the art for my website for each of the podcasts. And so I usually send them over 10 at a time. And what I have coming up is ridiculous. And here's why. I went to do this last in-person training and everybody there was so ridiculously smart and so learned on the concepts in the podcast that I was able to teach at a ridiculously high level. And so I'm thinking, well, most of y'all that are listening to this, maybe if you didn't come to the in-person training, are still as learned as they are. And so I'm going to start teaching you guys, at least for the next 10 sessions, at a super high level. Now, if you just found my podcast and you're just listening to this, please go back to the beginning and listen to the beginning ones, because this will be quite literally very confusing to you if you don't understand the basic concepts of my model and how I teach it. So it'll be really confusing. So I just want to just pause this one. Make sure you subscribed, and hey, write a review. I'm such a review pusher today. And then go back and listen to those first, at least the first 10, so you have a good understanding of what the model is before you dive into this one. Okay. Now I want you to know that had I heard that on a podcast, I would think I was smart enough and I wouldn't go back to the beginning, and then I would be confused. So if you're that person, come on, let's do it. But I warned you. I totally warned you. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to For the next 3 sessions, I'm going to talk to you about really some higher level visionary things when it comes to the model and when it comes to coaching and changing and what we teach at the in-person training in terms of client involvement and that sort of thing. Then I am going to talk to you guys about weight loss. I have 2 sessions coming up in early March on weight loss that will blow your mind. Okay. I already have some episodes on weight loss. So if you haven't listened to those, I recommend you listen to those, but I have 2 more coming up. And then here's what I'm going to do. I have 2 free podcasts, and then I am creating a webinar on weight loss. Now, I usually do my webinars for free. And I usually have about 1,000 people sign up for a webinar because they're excited about it. And then I usually have about 250 people show up live and ask questions and are live on the webinar. And what I'm doing for this webinar is so elaborate and so intense and so overall-y encompassing that I'm not going to let someone sign up and not show up that hasn't paid. Because the whole time I'm creating this webinar, I'm like, people aren't even going to show up to this. And it's so freaking good. That's what I kept thinking in my mind. So instead of just changing that thought around, I decided I'm going to change my circumstance and make the webinar paid. So I'm going to be doing a webinar coming up in March 31st. I do not have a way for you to sign up for it yet, but when I run the weight loss podcasts that will be coming up in early March, I will have all the information to sign up for that webinar. It will be $97. I'm already creating it. It's ridiculously awesome. It's all my latest and greatest stuff, you guys. And there's so much. I have so much good stuff that I've learned about weight loss and doing the stopover eating masterclass and watching everybody lose weight. And oh my God, it's so powerful. So I can't wait to teach that to you. But I'm not just going to let people just sign up and then not show up or wait for the replay or anything like that. You have to sign up, you have to come live, and you got to pay. So it'll be $97 if you're interested in that. Keep an ear out, because when you hear those weight loss podcasts, I will be telling you how to get on that. And then, of course, I will also be opening up enrollment for Stopover Eating Masterclass, which is my very high-end small group of 6 coaching program for people who want to lose weight permanently and forever and never think about losing weight again. That's a promise. All right. Holy cow. That's my intro. Some of you are already at work, so you'll have to listen to the rest of it on the way back. But what we're talking about today is awareness, watching models. So this is the first in a series of really good, in-depth podcasts where I'm going to take you into some work on them. So I have this concept called watching models, where you're looking at the models that are in your brain and you're discovering new models that are in your brain. And one of the things that we have a hard time teaching and selling students in our coaching group is the concept that consciousness is treatment, that watching models and doing models is in and of itself treatment. Awareness is treatment. And what I mean by treatment is literally changes you. By observing your own mind, by becoming more conscious, you are changing. That is a huge part of the process. Now, when I teach people about models, so much of the time, they just want to change to a new model. I had a question recently from one of you guys on the podcast area on the website. The question was, how do you explain that 50% of the time we're going to experience negative emotion, but also that we are the cause of our own emotion? So shouldn't we try to aim for 100% positive emotion? And I say, good luck. There are so many unconscious thoughts that we have, so much prior programming to undo, and so many incoming events and programming to do, that in order to keep up with those 60,000 thoughts a day and to have only 100% positive thoughts, I have found to be impossible. I think that Byron Katie and Eckhart Tolle can do it. And I say, if you can do it, rock it on. But here's what I've noticed. The more I try and do in my life, the more I try to evolve in my life, the more negative emotion that I have. And I'm not willing to give up my evolvement in order not to feel negative emotion. So I think every time we evolve ourselves, we open up that discomfort, and I'm all in. So is it your responsibility what you feel? Yes. Are you able to track every single thought that you have so you don't feel any negative emotion? No. And is that okay? Not only is it okay, it's part of the human experience. It's part of the deal. Okay. So let's talk about the phases of consciousness. And this is what I taught in the very first part of my course when I was teaching my in-person training. So I'm giving you kind of a window into that. And by the way, if you're totally geeking out on that and you love that and you want to come hang out with us for 6 days and get this turbocharged, then go to thelifecoachschool.com and let us know. We'll hook you up. Okay. So let's talk about the phases of consciousness. And the first phase is unconsciousness. And that's where most of us human beings are. Most of us do not spend a lot of time observing ourselves. Most of us do not think about what we're thinking about. Most of us don't pay close enough attention to even what we're creating in our lives and taking responsibility for that. So most of my clients come to me completely unconscious. Most of you guys come to this podcast with a level of unconsciousness. And just by listening to this podcast, just by getting this knowledge in your brain, just by paying attention to your own mind, you are learning how to be more conscious. So the next step, when we have a client that comes to us that's completely unconscious, or if you are unconscious, what we do is we start to look at what are you doing and what are you creating in your life. Okay. So one of the best ways that I know how to do this with a client is to ask them and to write it down. If you're coaching yourself, you just write it down. What are the current actions you're taking in your life? Just write them all down. Now you'll be surprised. Let me give you the example of this with food, right? You want to be very specific with this. So a client will come to me completely unconscious and I'll say, well, what are you eating? And they'll say, not that much. And I'll say, okay, let's keep a food journal, right? And that all of a sudden gives us a lot of awareness as to what they're doing and why they're getting the results they are getting. People come to me, they say, I don't have enough time. I'm totally overwhelmed with everything that I have to do. I can't get everything done. And I'll say, okay, let's keep a time journal. I want to know everything that you're doing in your life, right? People will say, I'm having a problem in my relationships, right? And I'll say, okay, tell me about what's going on in the relationships. What are you doing in those relationships? And what result is that creating? Okay. Now, most of the time, what will happen is a client will give you a story that will include, you'll ask them what they are doing and you'll ask them what results they are creating. And they will immediately give you what other people are doing and what they believe is being created for them. And they won't recognize that they are the ones that are actually creating it. So what I have them do, and I've talked about this on the podcast, you guys can scroll through over at thelifecoachschool.com. If you go to podcast, you can scroll down every podcast that I've done. And I've done 100, in case you're interested. I've done 100 podcasts. So you can scroll through them pretty quickly. And you can see which ones talk about awareness and what ones talk about separating out the facts. And that's what I have my clients do. I have them separate what are the facts of what is going on in your life and what's all the story. Okay. So that's a really good first step. And then asking them, what are you doing? What are your actions? What are you creating? And what are the results of that creation in your life? Okay. So if I say to my client, this is what you're eating and this is why you're overweight. I say to my client, this is what you're doing with your day. This is why you have no time to work out, whatever it is. We look at what are you doing and what is that creating in your life? Now that creates the second level of consciousness. You're becoming conscious of what you're actually doing. You're paying enough attention to recognize, wait a minute, what I'm doing is creating this result in my life. What a trip. Right? I never even realized that that's what I'm doing. Then the next layer that you want to look at is consciousness of feelings. Once you get the consciousness, now, if you're tracking with me, you'll notice I'm moving up the model from the bottom. Okay. So I asked, what are you doing and what is that creating? Now we're asking, what are you feeling? So once you become conscious of what you're doing and the results you're creating, first of all, most coaching only works on that action result line. right? So most coaching will find someone and say, okay, so what are you doing and what is that creating? Let's change that. Let's change what you're doing and what you're creating. And that's why the results aren't permanent, because they don't work their way up to the cause of the problem. But that's where we start, because we want to increase that level of awareness. First level is unconsciousness. Second level is awareness of action and results. Now we're at the level of feelings. We want our clients to understand what they're feeling. One of the best ways is to ask them. If they don't know, you have to look at their life and see how often they are distracting themselves from what they're feeling. Most of our clients do that, right? They get too busy, they overeat, they overdrink, they rage around, whatever it is they're doing not to feel what they're feeling. So that level of consciousness really requires us to tap back into the body, to see what's going on within the body, to notice the patterns of resistance and reaction and avoidance that are going on with our feelings. Again, if you don't know about feelings, go and listen to all my podcasts on feelings so you can understand. And one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you understand the difference between your emotions, and you want to understand your ability to actually feel them. Do you feel your emotions? Do they feel like vibrations? And can you distinguish between them? Can you name them? Now, if you're a coach, many of your clients will not be able to name their emotions. You will have to work with them and help them do that. We have lots of worksheets that we give to our clients to help them do this. And it's really powerful to write down what you're experiencing and what you're going through as you're feeling a feeling. That will really change that level of consciousness. So now we've gotten to the middle of the model, right? Our clients really understand that their actions are creating their results, and they understand how they're feeling. And one of the things that you can do there is connect to them. Hey, notice when you're feeling this way, this is the action you take. Right? Now that they have that full understanding of why they're feeling that way, then they can understand, oh, okay, and I notice when I'm feeling this way, it creates these certain actions. Then the next level of consciousness is your consciousness of your thinking. Now, this is challenging for people. When you ask them what they're thinking, they tell you about their life, right? They tell you a story about what's going on in their life. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. When they're telling you that story, they're actually telling you what they're thinking. Okay, so here's where your mind might go, what the what? So if I ask you right now, what are you thinking? You're going to tell me a story about your day. You're going to tell me what's going on for you. You're going to tell me your thoughts, but you won't realize that you're telling me your thinking. You'll think you're just telling me about your day. Right? So I'll say, hey, what are you thinking? Well, I'm thinking that my, brother came over today and yelled at me, and, he won't pay me back for that money that he owes me. And I'm really frustrated about that. And then I had to go to work, and the guy at work is still being a total jerk, and I still can't get enough work done, and my boss is terrible. Right? So you're telling me all of your thinking when you tell me that, but you don't know that you're telling me your thinking. You think you're just telling me your day. So what we need to understand is that fourth level of consciousness, that fourth phase of consciousness is not just about writing down thoughts. It's about being conscious that they are thoughts. Okay? That your story is really just a bunch of thinking. That your thinking is just a sentence in your mind. That your thinking is optional. Right? Because if it's just a thought, then I can change it. So if you say to me, oh, my brother came over today and was yelling and screaming, and it was really awful, and he's terrible, and, whatever, you think that you're just telling me what happened. You don't think that that's an optional thought, right? Because you're just sharing the news. But your interpretation of that event, your thoughts about that event are optional. But if you don't understand that your thinking is what's causing your experience of that event, you won't be conscious of your thinking. Now, here's what happens in our coaching sessions, and here's what happens when I'm first training students. We understand the concept of our thinking. We understand that our thoughts create our feelings. We understand that thoughts are optional intellectually. So we understand the concept intellectually. That is very different than being conscious of your own thinking. So the knowledge that thoughts are optional, the knowledge that thoughts create our feelings is not the same as being conscious of your own thinking. And this shows up over and over again in our coaching sessions, because what happens is I'll say to a client, so why are you feeling the way you're feeling? And they'll go immediately back to attributing it to a circumstance. And then I'll show it to them. I'll explain it to them. I'll say, no, the reason you're feeling this way is because of the way you're thinking. Can you see it? And they're like, oh, yeah, I get it. So then I'll come back and ask them, okay, so why are you feeling the way you're feeling? And they'll say, oh, because of my circumstances, right? So understanding something intellectually and really being conscious and having that understanding in a conscious way is very, very different. Okay, so what most people want to do is understand something intellectually. They don't want to apply it to themselves and they want the answer. But if you are conscious that every single time you feel a negative emotion, it's because of the way you're thinking. If you really understand that every single time you feel a negative emotion, it's because of how you're thinking, you won't be in a hurry to change your thinking. Because do you understand, as soon as you understand that the thought is causing the feeling, you understand that it's optional, you can let it go. You don't have to replace it, right? When people think that their thoughts are involuntary and that they don't have options, that's when they want to replace it. That's when they want to focus on something else. So you see how it's like this intellectual game you're playing. It's like you're trying to hack your own mind. But think about this, you guys. If your negative thought is causing your negative emotion, understanding that is enough. Because if you understand that it's optional, then you can choose not to think it. Literally, you can choose not to in that moment. And you don't even have to choose not to, because your awareness that it's just a thought can dissipate it immediately. Okay? So everybody wants to get to the part where we get to the new thought. I totally get that. But until you understand that it's genuinely a thought creating your feeling, then there's no reason, right? There's no reason to go to the new thought, because you don't believe it's a thought causing your feeling. Why change the thought? Okay. And that's the same when you're working with your clients. And then the fifth phase of consciousness is understanding cause and effect for all of it, right? So understanding that, oh my gosh, my thoughts are creating all my feelings. My feelings are creating all my actions, and my actions are creating all my results. When you really genuinely understand that and you distinguish between circumstances causing all of those other things, that's the ultimate level of consciousness. Now notice, we haven't even at this point changed anything. All we've done is become conscious. All we've done is become more conscious. So when it comes to thinking, we're just asking, why are you choosing to think this way? Your thoughts create your feelings. Why are you choosing to think this way? We haven't said change the way you're thinking. All we've done is ask another consciousness question. But once you truly understand your model, once you truly are conscious of it and you watch your model act out in your life, create the effect in your life, once you understand the cause of something, changing it becomes effortless. Now, we can try and change it against its current thought patterning, but here's the way that I want you to think about it. And this is the way I do it with weight loss. And I promise you I'm going to talk a lot more about this, but here's just a glimmer of the weight loss thing. I can teach you how to eat less. I can teach you how to have more willpower. I can teach you how to hack your eating so you're not as hungry. I can teach you all that. Or I can find out the cause of why you want to overeat and solve for that. And once I've solved for that, I don't have to teach you about willpower because you won't need it. You with me on this, sisters and brothers? You get it? So when I treat the cause of the issue, I don't have to finagle with the symptoms. It doesn't mean we don't treat symptoms. We have a lot of tricks up our sleeves, the Life Coach School, on how to treat symptoms. That's where we start. That's just the very beginning. That's nowhere near the end. For some other coaching schools, that's their whole shebang. And there's nothing wrong with that, man. The second level of consciousness, just dealing with your actions and results, is what most people don't do. So it's a step in the right direction. But what I want to do is get you down to the cause. Like, what are the thoughts you're having? What are the feelings you're having? What is everything that you're doing that is creating this result for you? So those are the 5 phases of consciousness. And when I ask you, why are you choosing to think this way? You immediately know that it's optional. And then, and only then, can you see this is an option. This model that I'm watching in my life is an option I don't have to choose. And at that moment, you have a paradigm shift. At that moment, you have a perception change. Marianne Williamson, she defines a miracle as a perception change. And I'm totally with her. Understanding that your thought is the only problem in any situation is a miracle in and of itself, because you can change your thought, right? So I haven't tried to change anything yet. We're only watching models. We're only increasing consciousness. And I have worked with many, many, many people only to this one level, only to watching models and seen their lives completely change. Now, there is relief in awareness, understanding why you are where you are, understanding why you feel the way you do, understanding why you're thinking the way you're thinking is such a huge relief. It's so empowering just to understand that. So please do not underestimate the power of consciousness, of increasing consciousness in your life, of increasing awareness in your life. Once again, the phases of consciousness are 1, unconsciousness. 2, awareness of actions and results. 3, awareness and consciousness of feelings. 4, consciousness of thoughts. And 5, consciousness of cause and effect. Once you can do that and watch your models, you have increased your consciousness to a level that most people will never get to. Most people never get to experience what it's like to be the observer, to watch yourself think, to think about your own thinking. So please don't try and skip over this step. This level of consciousness is huge, just becoming aware of your own models. Now, I know that many of you listening to this podcast have joined me in the How to Feel Better online course. And I want to let you know, in that course, you get direct email access to me. I am the one providing all of the support for that course because I want to hear what your questions are and what you're getting. So if you are in that course, at the bottom of the page where it says ask any questions, I want you to know that those come to me and I usually answer within a few hours on those. So if you're not in the How to Feel Better course, you should join it immediately by going to thelifecoachschool.com. And if you look on the top tab there, it will show you how to click and get there in the How to Feel Better course. And we take all these concepts to a deeper level, and you'll be able to apply all of the ways of how to feel better, how to think better, how to take better action, and how to get better results in detail in that course. Other than that, I hope you guys are having an amazing week, and I will be happy to talk to you guys all next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Life Coach School podcast. It is my honor to show up here every week and connect with people that are like-minded, wanting to take their life to a deeper level with more awareness and more consciousness. If you are interested in taking this work to the next level, I highly encourage you to go to thelifecoachschool.com/how to feel better online. It is there that I have a class that will take all of this to a deeper application where you'll be able to really feel and experience how all of these concepts can start showing up in your life. It's one thing to learn it intellectually. It's another thing to truly apply it to your life. I will see you there. Thanks again for listening.